JJK fans can't read. That's pretty much been the narrative that's been floating around recently. And I know the newest episode of JJK just came out and it was great. We'll talk about it. But people just seem to be stuck on this idea that JJK fans just cannot read. I wanted to talk about it for a little bit because I feel like I have a unique stance on it, or rather I should say a pretty updated stance on it as somebody who literally just caught up to JJK. But this entire idea that JJK fans just don't read, it's not anything new, but it's becoming relevant again because one of the latest episodes of JJK that just dropped is currently sitting at a 7.8 on IMDb, and that has people all the way riled up because if you watch the episode, and I'm assuming that most of us have, it's a very exposition heavy episode with zero fights in it. So to the untrained eye, you might see this and start trying to connect the dots and say, hey, there's a JJK episode that dropped, there's no fights in it, it's very heavy on the yapping, and it's also the lowest rated episode of the season. I guess JJK fans can't sit through an episode unless there's a fight in it. I suppose the first thing I want to say, and I mean, I guess y'all can tell me how y'all feel about this, but when did 7.8 become a bad score? I know JJK gets a lot of high scores. I know that JJK is accustomed to like 8s and 9s, but let's not sit here and act like a 7.8 that's borderline an 8 is a bad score. On average, JJK fans have rated this episode dang near an 8. That's a pretty good episode. Like, that's a great episode in most people's eyes, and I guess somehow that got spun into JJK fans not liking to read. I feel like that's a disingenuous point, and I think the interesting part is that this narrative that JJK fans don't read, it's not like it's being pushed out by people that don't read the manga or don't watch the anime, because it's very easy to fall back on the crux of you just haven't read it. It's very easy to deflect criticism that way by saying you just haven't seen it, so you wouldn't know. But a lot of the people that are pushing this idea that JJK fans don't read are JJK fans themselves. They're part of the JJK fandom, and they're literally critiquing other JJK fans for not reading their own manga. And in a way, they're probably right. And what I mean by this is that they would be right in the sense that there are people that don't care about the JJK story at all. There are people that only read the manga and watch the anime for the action. All of that is true, but I don't understand why it's such a surprise and such a shock that there's a sector of JJK fans that don't care about the story on a deeper level, because JJK is one of the largest anime out right now. And if you're going to be one of the largest anime with one of the biggest followings, then obviously the media literacy within the fandom is going to range from a lot to a little. Obviously, when you have a fan base that's as big as Jujutsu Kaisen, because this is one of the best-selling manga of all time, you're gonna have a lot of fans that understand every intricate detail. And then on the flip side, you're gonna have people that misunderstood the story so much so that they're asking themselves, why is Yuji killing people in the Shibuya incident? That might be exaggerated a little bit, but I hope that gets my point across. Like, yeah, some of you guys are gonna understand the story a whole lot more than a lot of people that watch JJK. Now, I guess the million-dollar question would be, who's more valid in their viewing experience? Because to me, if you want to be one of those people that just watches JJK and you just think the fights are epic sauce and you really don't care about the story, you just want to see some awesome fights, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't know if that's like a bad take or if some of you guys might disagree with me, but ultimately, the only person who can tell you that you like an anime is you. There's nobody on this planet who can overrule your opinion and tell you whether you're a real JJK fan or not. And that goes for y'all that have the media literacy of a hamster as well, which I guess leads me to my next point as well. We've already talked about people that say JJK fans can't read from within the fandom, but now I want to talk about people that say that from outside the fandom. Like, they're not JJK fans, yet they always have something to say about JJK. And the type of person that I'm talking about is the type of anime fan that walks around and they think that they're the law. They think that they're the police of who is and who isn't an anime fan, and you have to go through them first before you're considered a real fan of anime. I think it's the dumbest thing ever. I think gatekeeping is lame. I don't know why it's so prevalent in the anime community. So many people are just weird about it, but I wanted to address that JJK specifically because JJK gets the brunt of these attacks for whatever reason. And I'll bring up an example recently. Mr. Beast posted a list of all the anime that he'd seen, and people went off on his anime list. Now, regardless of what you think of Mr. Beast, substitute this for anybody else on this planet, it's the same premise. Here you have somebody that just posted a list of their favorite anime, and then you have people coming out of the woodworks like, nah, you're not really an anime fan. And this happens so much with Jujutsu Kaisen. It's almost like people view JJK as a lesser anime, or a lesser manga, or a lesser art form in general. I'm sure some of y'all have seen this online, or maybe some of y'all have been told this yourselves, where you're not a real anime fan if you've seen JJK, or if JJK is your favorite, then you're not a real fan of anime because you haven't seen the most obscure anime known to man yet. And my thing is why? Like, why is that even a thing to begin with? It's not just like, of course, it's obviously disrespectful to people that watch JJK to completely deny their anime fanhood, but it's also very diminutive of Gege's work, where people can't be true manga fans if they've only read his manga, and people can't be real anime fans if they've only seen his anime. Why? It's this thing that primarily happens with like battle shonen and action anime, where you're not a real fan if you're only tuning in for the action. But even so, people act like JJK has no story whatsoever, and I don't understand it. And I can attest to this with my own personal experience, actually, because I didn't catch up until JJK very recently. I made a video on it. Feel free to go check it out and subscribe. But when it comes to an anime, if you haven't seen it and you haven't been spoiled about it, what do you really know about it? You would primarily know what other people say about the anime. Say you haven't watched One Piece, but I bet you know it's long. You don't have to watch the anime to know that. Say you haven't watched Demon Slayer, but I bet you know the animation is top notch. You don't have to watch the anime to know that. And the thing with JJK, everything that I heard about JJK from JJK fans themselves who were trying to put me onto the anime was that it's an anime that you can turn your brain off. There's not really much story. You just tune in for the fights and you just sit back and enjoy. You don't have to think. This is literally what they're telling me. JJK fans, by the way. So if I had to categorize them, yeah, you know, they would probably be in the group of JJK fans that don't read, if I were to be honest. But when I caught up to JJK and I watched JJK on my own accord, I realized that, yeah, you know, you could watch JJK like that. You could turn your brain off and just enjoy the fights. You could. And that's something that I've already been vocal about and I've already praised JJK about, is the ability to manage both sides. Mappa has done a great job with JJK. I think everybody can agree to that. I think even people that haven't watched JJK can agree to that. Mappa has done a great job, not just of adapting JJK, but animating JJK. So if you want to be one of those people that literally just turns on the TV, you sit back, you relax, you watch some flashy fights, all power to you. You can do that. But what I really appreciate about JJK is the fact that there's actually a surprisingly good story that you can sink your teeth into. And by the way, JJK has a story that people online will have you believe is non-existent. People will tell you that JJK has no story. My own friends that used to watch JJK told me JJK doesn't really have a story. I don't know why JJK has gotten this reputation of having no story, because when I think of an anime that has no story, I think of Solo Leveling. When you watch JJK, it's not like you're sitting and you're watching a nothing burger of an anime. Especially with Kenjaku's plan to evolve the citizens of Japan, it's a pretty convoluted plan, not in a bad way, but there's a lot more intricacies to it than you would imagine, especially if you haven't even seen JJK. So I don't know why, now that I've caught up to the anime, I don't understand for the life of me why JJK is viewed as this lesser art form. It's viewed as this lesser anime, and if you view it, if you enjoy it, you're a lesser fan of anime as a genre. I just don't get it. It's the silliest thing in the world to me. But from my expert analysis, do I think that JJK fans read? Truth be told, what I believe, and I don't know how many of y'all will agree with me on this, but I really think that a majority of the fan base does read, because I can't help but think that if they didn't read, if they weren't actually media literate, then I don't think that Jujutsu Kaisen would be their manga of choice. Now, anime might be different. There probably are a lot of people that picked up the anime just because it looks good, but I think the same goes for the anime fans. There's a number of battle shonen out there that specialize in amazing looking action that have way less of a convoluted plot than Jujutsu Kaisen does. So ultimately, I believe that what really captivates people about Jujutsu Kaisen, it's not just the fights, and while yeah, I think the fights play a big part in it, but I think they're captivated by the characters and their backstories. I think they're captivated by characters like Yuji, who's not just your typical battle shonen MC. You know, he's not the typical battle shonen man character like Naruto, for example, that says from episode 1, I want to be X, Y, and Z, and by the end of the show, he ends up being X, Y, and Z. No, Yuji is different. Yuji says he wants to give people a proper death, and then he kills the entire population of Shibuya. And obviously that wasn't him, that was Sukuna, but that's part of the nuance of his character. And I can't help but think, like, there's so many anime that really are a whole lot more generic than JJK, and I thought JJK was generic at first. And then I start seeing the characters develop and I'm like, oh, they look generic at first glance. They might seem to be generic and cookie cutter, but they're not. And I like to think, you know, I could be wrong, but I like to think that that's probably part of the appeal as to why so many Jujutsu Kaisen fans like the anime, and that takes a level of media literacy. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Jujutsu Kaisen fans are Socrates, but you know, dang it, like, you know, we can read. And you know, I even think about like the subgenre of anime fans like power scalers, and we all know Jujutsu Kaisen has a pretty sizable power scaling community, and I think that even power scaling requires a little bit of media literacy. So I really don't understand where this, like, why is Jujutsu Kaisen like the anime that is for dumb people? Mind you, all of this started over a review that was a 7.8. It's borderline an 8, and then followed by the Maki episode getting a 9.8. It just generated the discussion that JJK fans don't care about the story and they only care about animation. And this was specifically being pushed by Japanese JJK fans. That's what led me to make this video, and this is what I'll say about it. It's very clear and it's very evident that there was extra effort put into this episode. So it stands to reason that people would notice this and rate the episode higher in appreciation, to show that we appreciate the effort that went into this episode. I don't know how that became a whole, like, JJK fans just can't read. No, they put extra love into the episode, so we're gonna put extra stars into the rating. Like, that's, hello? But whatever, if I was to rate the Maki episode, realistically, I'd give it a 9. But honestly, with all the slander, like, I might as well just hop on IMDb right now and go give it a 10. But y'all let me know what y'all think. Sorry for the yap session. I'm just like, I'm bamboozled right now, because I cannot believe that we're having JJK fans can't read discussions because because we decided to give a good episode a good rating. Hello? Anywho, this is the first time I'm asking. Go follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to stay on top of more anime discussions, so if you talk about anime or you repost anime, or even if you repost art, I might just go follow you back. Like, subscribe, and comment if you made it this far, and if you haven't, go rate that Maki episode a 10 if you cannot read.